Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this beautiful Monday afternoon. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about in the National Football League. We've already got some scheduling leaks. One that came out just a few minutes ago, about 15 minutes ago, for the Cowboys season opener. We'll touch on that briefly, but I really want to focus in on the Kansas City Chiefs season opener and how I think the Baltimore Ravens might have gotten screwed over. And I say that as a Steelers fan, but I must say a delighted Steelers fan. I'll detail that why in about 30 minutes. Also, why the Knicks aren't dead yet. I know they look like they're falling apart at the seams physically, mentally. Just look at the scoreboard yesterday. It would indicate that. I'm not selling my stock on the New York Knicks just yet. I mean, at least until the Eastern Conference Finals when Boston waxes whoever comes out of the series. Nonetheless, I'm not selling my stock on the Knicks. I'll detail that in about 10 minutes or so. Also, I'm going to get into the Dallas Mavericks, and I have been on this for a month plus about this whole, ever since they started playing differently, playing more of a team-oriented offense, their defense has stepped up. Guys like PJ Washington, obviously we've seen Kyrie Irving step up, and Luka Doncic is still doing his thing, still playing good basketball. Detail that in about 45 minutes, and at the end of the show, why Caitlin Clark has an opportunity to do something. She's done plenty of unprecedented things before, but to do something unprecedented as it pertains to WNBA rookies. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Caitlin Clark makes her WNBA debut. Those preseason games, those don't count. She makes her debut tomorrow for the Indiana Fever. Going to be very excited to watch that. So some Caitlin Clark talk. Also, loaded show today. Some Jared Goff talk because he just signed an extension, a massive extension, about an hour and a half before the show started. Detail my three big takeaways on that. But first, can we all just take a deep breath? A collective deep breath. And what I mean by that is every single time, like clockwork, I've been doing this show for 4.5 years, since October of 2019, and it's been one of the joys of my life. But one of the things that is very, very irritating is when the pendulum swings one way in a series or over the course of a season as it pertains to the NFL, because it's not a series in the NFL, but 17 games, each game has a different level of significance added to it. The frequency, and just recently, that we count out or almost dismiss defending champions or dynasties, I find alarming, disturbing, all of the above. That's what was done to the Denver Nuggets last week. Now, I was one of the few to aptly criticize the Nuggets for their lackluster, doesn't even begin to describe, to a degree, their performance in Game 1, certainly in Game 2, when they got blown off the floor by the Timberwolves on their home floor in Denver, Colorado. And everybody after the Timberwolves steal the 2 games Denver up, series is over. I said, no, it's not. Should the Timberwolves be favored to win the series? Yes, of course they should. Has Anthony Edwards been the best player in the series? Yes, I would argue he's still been. Jokic has been awesome. Ant was great last night. But again, when we talk about defending champions, when we talk about a Denver Nuggets team that is the best player in basketball, Nikola Jokic, that's not arguable. And I put pressure on Jokic. I said, hey, listen, if this series goes awry, this will be kind of a stain on Jokic where it's like 3 MVPs and all 3 playoff appearances that he won those MVPs, they got knocked out almost immediately out of the postseason or in embarrassing fashion. Jokic said, no. I'm going to take a bunch of shots. I'm going to become somewhat of a volume offensive player. And he was awesome on Friday. It was even better last night in Game 4, where the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves to tie the series up at 2 games apiece, essentially making a best of 3. And Denver swoops in, steals home court right back from Minnesota. But the idea that this was never going to happen, not saying it was guaranteed to happen, but you have the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic. You have the better coach in Michael Malone, who I think is one of the 5 best coaches in basketball. I believe he's a great coach for years. When you have a Denver Nuggets basketball team that, let's not forget, with a lot of these same core players outside of Aaron Gordon, he wasn't a Nugget yet, but do we have, we have short memories here in this, I guess, social media microwave society. Do we not remember that in 2020, it was the bubble? I know that doesn't count. I get the bubble doesn't count. I understand that. But do we not remember that the Denver Nuggets were down 3-1 to the Utah Jazz in the first round, 2020, and they came back and won? And in the second round, infamously, down 3-1 to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, some of that was the Clippers choking. Some of that was the Denver Nuggets and a young Jokic and a young Jamal Murray stepping up big time. Michael Malone making the requisite adjustments that Doc Rivers didn't make, and they came back from that. So if you're Jokic, you're Jamal Murray, we've stared 2-2. It's never been done before. 3-1 deficits in the eye and overcame both. A 2-0 deficit? We're the defending champion. People don't take into consideration, when it comes to defending champions or dynasties, against the ropes. Nobody takes this, or I shouldn't say nobody. Most people don't take this into consideration. To become a champion, is there a level of luck that comes with it? No question. No, there has never been, I will die on this hill, there has never been a champion in the history, I want to repeat that, the history of American professional sports, never been a champion that did not have at least one aspect of luck on their side. You know what that is? Health. And there's a number of, a ball bounces your way. The other team isn't healthy. There's a number, a bad call goes in your favor. Like, there's all kinds of factors, luck-based or fortune-based, if you want to call it that can go in your favor to help you win a championship. But you obviously have to have the skill. You got to have the mental fortitude. In almost every case, you got to have a great coach. You got to have the best player on the floor of the field, whatever the case may be. And the Denver Nuggets have all those things. The Denver Nuggets, sure, they didn't face a lot of adversity a year ago when they cruised to a championship, seemingly only lost 4 games in the playoffs entirely, but they've stared 2-3-1 deficits in the face, won both series in 2020. So a 2-0 deficit to a Timberwolves team that's never been here before. A 2-0 deficit to a Timberwolves team that, while Anthony Edwards is awesome, and I don't have a bad word to say today about Anthony Edwards. I don't know if anybody does or could. But this is the same Timberwolves team, and I tried to warn everybody coming into the playoffs. This is why I didn't believe in them all season long. I didn't trust Chris Finch when he had 2 healthy knees. And we're talking about the coach right now, not even a player. Now he's having to be on the bench. And again, there's a different dynamic when you're coaching the bench. Obviously, we know in Game 4 against the Suns, Mike Conley, accidentally ran into his coach. I think he messed up his patella, if I'm not mistaken, had surgery on it, and is relegated to having to sit on the bench the entire game. He can't stand up. So you have that aspect. You have a Karl-Anthony Towns, who, while I've always liked, I've never viewed him as, he can be the number 2 on a championship team. He has the talent to be that. He just doesn't have the mentality to be a number 2, to be the number 2 on a championship team. And then you have Rudy Gobert. And I wasn't necessarily bullied into it, but again, we talk about overreactions. The national media, the Minnesota media, Timberwolves fans demanded an apology to Rudy Gobert. A year ago, I was the ringleader, seemingly said, this is one of the worst trades in NBA history. You give up Rudy Gobert, 4 first-round picks, some pretty good players in the deal. What are you doing? The Nets didn't get offers like that for Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant doesn't go for that, Rudy Gobert dang sure shouldn't go for that, right? But hey, Rudy Gobert played well this season. Rudy Gobert got his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award, which, if I'm not mistaken, might tie him for first all time. Rudy Gobert, if you just go by that award, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Bryson, Rudy Gobert haters, apologize. Never did. And we're seeing it unfold in front of our eyes once again. All graphics provided by my buddy Alfred Parsar Jr. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. Let's look at Rudy Gobert on the regular season as it pertains to defensive rating since the 2016-17 season. That was the first year Rudy Gobert made the playoffs, 2017. He had a 99. So this is defensive ratings every year in the regular season from 2017 to 2024, okay? 99.2, 99.4, 100.3, 103.9, 100.5, 103.2, 109.5, this year 104.4. All of those across the board, with the exception of 2023 isn't great, are exceptional defensive ratings. Now let's look at the playoffs. 2017 to 2024. Oh, they all go up. And if your defensive rating goes up, it's not a good thing. 2017 to 24, 104.9, 103.6, 105.2, 117.1, yikes, 112, 116.7, and this year, 109.2, and it should be noted that not only Has Rudy Gobert's defensive rating gone up? And you never want your defensive rating. You want your offensive rating to go up, not your defensive rating. Gone up every single year he's been in the playoffs for what his regular season average was. Not only that, but the game that had the media fooled, the game that had me as a guy who put the Nuggets in 6 and feel great about that pick today, had me flabbergasted. Like, what the heck? It's one thing for the Timberwolves to win game 2. It's another to humiliate. Had the home fans booing the defending champions. And Denver's not Boston or Philadelphia. They don't boo at the drop of a hat. Like, that's not really their intense fan base. That's not what they do. You know, wasn't on the floor that night for Minnesota? Ant was there. Cat was there. Rudy Gobert was not on the floor. Now, in Rudy's defense, birth of a child. Like, contrary to what Gilbert Arenas says, like, Rudy Gobert, be with your woman, be with your child. Like, that's absolutely. But the one game Rudy Gobert missed, the Timberwolves looked darn near unbeatable. He comes back. They lose both games. In game 3, the Nuggets dominated the T-Wolves. Game 4, which I felt like was kind of a must-win for Minnesota. You don't want to lose home court with the momentum for the Nuggets going back to game 5 in Denver. He's non-existent. The Timberwolves were built to stop Nikola Jokic. In the first 2 games, they were sure. But as I said after game 2, that I felt like the Nuggets would still win this series. Denver was used to, in the past 5 games leading up to the series, no disrespect to the great LeBron James, who evidently Reggie Miller thinks is like a locker room cancer, neither here nor there, or Anthony Davis. Lakers were kind of a soft defensive team. The Timberwolves, quite the opposite. Nuggets need to adjust to that. They had 3 days to adjust before game 3. This idea that Michael Malone was not going to, and the Nuggets as a whole, were not going to sit and have this embarrassing first 2 games of series fester into their psyche, that was not going to occur, and that a great coach Malone wasn't going to make the requisite adjustments over Chris Finch was nonsense. He was always going to. So shout out to the Denver Nuggets, defending champions. And again, we did this with the Chiefs last year. Well, the Chiefs offense, if there's 2 guys I know is going, or if there's 2 guys I'm confident can fix a seemingly broken offense, it's the best coach in the league, Andy Reid, and the best quarterback in the league, Mahomes, and the best tight end in the league still, Travis Kelce. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're going to fix it, and what do you know? They're the back-to-back champs. Oh, the Warriors are down 2-0 to the Celtics. Yeah, the Warriors also have the best coach in the series, best player in the series, more experience in the series, and they won the rest of the games in that series, and Steph was awesome. You don't underestimate. What did Rudy Tomjanovich say? 95 finals, I believe it was, when the Rockets went back-to-back. I believe it was 95 finals. What did he say? Never underestimate the heart of a champion. We've got to get out of this business of once a champion, once a dynasty faces a little adversity, but that's it. They're done. It's first to 4, not first to 2. And when you have the best player in the world, Jokic, one of the best coaches in the league, Malone, let's be honest, the better overall roster, Denver. Aaron Gordon missed 1 shot last night. You're going to get it right. Take a deep breath. Again, I almost wonder if some of the media reaction almost spurred the Denver Nuggets to their performance they were able to put out there the last 2 games, where, hold on a second, the whole media is just writing us off completely. Okay, let's show y'all what we got. So shout out to Denver. A very impressive performance last night. Jokic was awesome. If we can pull up Jokic's stat line, what he dropped, 35, 7 and 7, 15 of 26. 26 is a lot of shots for Jokic. Only 1 for 5 from 3. Jokic is struggling this series, shooting for the 3. A lot of that's from going 1 for 9 in game 1, but he's made the adjustments. Oh, Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, what? He's not a playoff performer. Okay, cool. He blocked shots. Okay. If Rudy Gobert gets Defensive Player of the Year because he's good at blocking shots, then give it to Wemby. Wemby's way better at that. Okay. If you want to give it to somebody with the whole defensive package, give it to Anthony Davis. Apologize for I'm not apologizing for this guy has never been a playoff performer. This guy's one of the most easy guys to adjust to in the postseason. Folks, can we put up the stat line one more time? Okay. You see that defensive rating, the 2021 defensive rating, 117. Keep in mind, Rudy won Defensive Player of the Year that year, and that's what he put up in the playoffs. 117 defensive rating. That's equivalent to that of Steph Curry. And I love Steph. Steph's, I think, a better defender than he gets credit for, but no one's going to mistake Steph Curry for Gary Payton. That's what Rudy is. Get him on the perimeter. Again, Rudy against Jokic, like, stop. And by the way, he's incredibly limited offensively. So am I shocked? No, I don't think I saw this coming. Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion. The Denver Nuggets showed you why. They are still the favorites to win the West, in my mind, the favorites to win the NBA championship. Kudos to Denver. Kudos to Jokic and Jamal Murray. By the way, that stretch at the end of the first half was just, I felt like the game, I think most people did, but it really felt like just not a dagger in the series. We still have 2 games to go. I'm not like guaranteeing Denver's going to win. I'm going to stick with my pick because pick integrity. See, I don't, this is where I'm different than most of the national media. The national media likes, oh my God, it's the biggest thing in the world, worst thing in the world, greatest thing in the world. Pick integrity. Don't move an inch until proven incorrect. Then you move. Because at that point, if you don't move, you're stubborn. You know, Denver in 6, sticking with it. But that end of the first half stretch, they get the steal on one end. Porter Jr. gets the dunk. Then they throw a base. Was it Alexander Walker? I forget who it was who threw it. It might have been McDaniels. I forget who it was. Threw a baseball pass the other end of the floor. Murray catches it, swishes it from half court, a la Steph Curry against the Grizzlies in 2015. A very, very similar sequence of events. And then you have the moment between Kevin Harlan and Jamal Murray, which I thought was pretty cool. But there you go. But fun series, physical series. You know, Denver's got the bodies to be physical too. Maybe not as many as Minnesota, but you got Aaron Gordon. You got KCP who could still defend. You got Michael Porter Jr. Jokic is not a cone on the defensive end of the floor. There you go. Speaking of teams that maybe didn't look the greatest defensively, at least they didn't yesterday. Let's talk about the New York Knicks. So they lost badly yesterday, game 4 to the Indiana Pacers, 121-89. It was never close from the jump. Indiana jumped out to a big lead in the first quarter. They won the first quarter 34-14. And at that point, you kind of got a pretty good reading that this was going to be a long day for the Knicks and that the Pacers were going to go ahead and tie this thing up at 2 games apiece. So I'm sticking with Knicks in 6, and I believe it to be true, and here's why. So people forget these swings in series are very crazy, impactful, whatever word you want to use to describe it. If Nembhard, who, by the way, I retweeted something I have from 2022. And Andrew Nembhard had a great game against my Warriors 2 years ago. And I said, man, this Nembhard kid's going to be special. Turns out that wasn't he's not special. He's a good player. But I retweeted that because I'm like, hey, maybe that aged well. But Nembhard hit the bomb, Steph Curry bomb 3 shots to essentially win the game for the Pacers on Friday in game 3. Pacers rode that momentum as well as the Knicks' fatigue into a game 4 win. Jalen Brunson wasn't that great, only 18 points on 6 for 17, shooting 0 for 5 from 3-point range. So here's the problem for the Knicks. And again, it is something that I think for anybody watching basketball, I think most people saw this coming. It was going to eventually catch up to New York. Is you're playing Josh Hart 48 minutes, back-to-back games. That hasn't been done since Jimmy Butler, a young Jimmy Butler with the Chicago Bulls, coached by Tom Thibodeau back in the day. You got Jalen Brunson playing a ton of minutes. You got obviously Josh Hart. You got all the Villanova guys. You got OG Anunoby playing a lot of minutes. He got hurt in game 2 with the hamstring injury. But I saw this. We don't have the graphic for it, but I did put this down in my notes. If you look at the minutes leaders, if you look at guys who have advanced past the second round of the playoffs, minutes per game in the playoffs, no surprise, Josh Hart leads it. He's followed by Luka Doncic. The next 2 guys are Knicks. Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby. And then you look down the list, Dante DiVincenzo at 15. So the New York Knicks have 4 of the top 15 guys in the top 15 in terms of playing a lot of minutes per game, including 3 of the top 4. It's not sustainable. Now, again, some of this is because the Knicks are losing so many bodies. Julius Randle, Bogdanovich, like they're losing a lot. OG Anunoby, they're losing a lot of bodies throughout the course of the season and this series. I still think the Knicks will win, and here's why. When you are gassed, any NBA veteran player will tell you this, and the Knicks don't have a ton of veterans, but I would almost argue it plays their advantage because they at least do have their younger bodies, younger athletes, younger legs. Any NBA player will tell you this. When you're tired, when you're exhausted, you feel like you don't have a lot left in the tank, which I imagine the Knicks, especially Josh Hart, my gosh, doesn't feel like he has much left. When you get the momentum of a home crowd, I think this happened, by the way, for the 2023 Golden State Warriors that were trying to defend their title a year or 2 years ago, technically, where it was a long drag-out season. The locker room, there was guys in the locker room that didn't like each other, a la Draymond Green and Jordan Poole, and they sucked on the road. I mean, they won 11 games on the road, yet they were one of the best, like 3 or 4 best teams in the league at home. Well, how are they so awful on the road and so great at home? Well, the problem is on the road, you're around each other a lot. You don't necessarily want to be with the other guy. Well, whereas at home, you get the home energy, you get the home crowd, you get the Warriors chant, you get all of that. So it gives you the drive, the momentum, the adrenaline. The Knicks will get that in Game 5 at Madison Square Garden. Those fans know. If there's any crowd in the NBA that knows basketball, it's the New York Knicks crowd. They may be a bit delusional, but those folks know basketball. They know. Knicks lose Game 5. This baby's a wrap. You cannot be a shot away from winning Game 3 on an almost empty tank, lose that game, lose Game 4 because you had an empty tank, then you lose Game 5 at home, then you're done. You're not going to Indianapolis, winning Game 6, coming back home and winning Game 7. You're just spent at that point. It's why I think the Knicks, if they win this series, and I believe they will, are dead in the water when they face the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's over. So the momentum, the adrenaline for the Madison Square Garden crowd. Also, and I've been on this for a while. It's why I liked Indiana, I've liked Tyrese Halliburton since his days in Sacramento. They're not a consistently good defensive team. Yesterday's an outlier, and most of that was not great defense. It was just legs tired. A lot of those shots for the Knicks were short. I mean, Jalen Brunson shorted some layups. Like, the guys were just exhausted. That said, you look at the other games in the series. Game 1, Knicks score 121. Game 2, the Knicks, with OG Anunoby going down, score 130. Even in Game 3, they dropped 106, which is a more reasonable number. But in a game, OG Anunoby got hurt third quarter. I believe it was third quarter. Still came through, still pulled up a ton of points. Jalen Brunson was great in the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson dropped another 40-burger in Game 1. Now, again, he did get injured in Game 2. He's playing through, I think, a knee injury right now. But right now, what you're looking with the New York Knicks, props to Rick Carlisle for making the adjustments for Indiana. But again, I don't think it's as much adjustments as it is. Dear God, they are exhausted. My guess is I'm sticking with Knicks in 6 just for pick integrity. Knicks in 7 feels more realistic. If you're the Knicks, you come home. Yes, we got the dog crap kicked out of us in Game 4. Yes, we feel exhausted. It's another plane ride home. But if we take care of our home games, we're good. But again, I will say, though, if the Knicks go on to lose this series, don't say I, or frankly, just about everybody, didn't tell you so in terms of how their season would end. Play too many dang minutes. Like, you can't be playing Josh Hart 48 minutes, guys. Like, if you play prime LeBron 48 minutes back-to-back nights, LeBron is still to this day as well-conditioned as Steph Curry as LeBron might be past that. The guy played a double overtime game against the Warriors. He was the only player on the floor who didn't look tired. Peak LeBron could not play 48 minutes back-to-back games without some sort of wear and tear on the body. Josh Hart definitely can't. I love Josh Hart. Hit some big shots in the playoffs. He's been the effort guy. Double-digit rebound games. We get that. It's just not sustainable. It's the very reason that if you're a Giannis, who I think will ask out this offseason, if you're a Kevin Durant, there's been some KD, the Knicks rumors. I don't know if the Knicks are attracted because of Brunson. I'm not sure if they're that attracted because of Thibodeau. That's the issue. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm sticking with the Knicks. I just don't feel great about that. Oh, wow. Patrick Brown. Breaking news. Donovan Mitchell ruled out for Game 4 per Woj. Well, listen, it was already over. I'm seeing our Greg group chat right now. This is hysterical. Not that Donovan Mitchell's hurt. That's not hysterical, but the reaction. So Donovan Mitchell's out Game 4. So listen, the Celtics were done to begin with, the Celtics were done. The Cavs were done, to begin with. But yeah, that's just what are we talking? 30-point blowout? 35? Listen, the Celtics are way better on the road than they are at home. They're 10 games. Think about this, folks. I did a segment on Friday when the Celtics lost Game 2 in blowout fashion. I said, this isn't that shocking, and it doesn't impact my view of the Celtics at all. They're awesome on the road. They're 10 games. Think about this, folks. Since 2022, the Boston Celtics, 10 games over 500 on the road, 500 at home. A lot of that, and I theorized this on Friday because you say, well, that means they're front runner. I don't think they're front runners. I think they are the typical, very talented. I mean, the Celtics have the best roster in basketball. The typical, really talented team, and again, a lot of this I put on coaching. Joe Mazzulla, who I don't think is a good coach at all. is you play down to your competition. You're not ready to go. Again, it's sort of almost a little reverse Knicks here, where you're at home. Sure, the Boston crowd is giving you the requisite momentum, but maybe you're not ready to go. You're like, we'll cruise. We're way better than Cleveland, which they are certainly without Donovan Mitchell. Whereas on the road, hey, we got to step up our game. We got to get ready to go. We got to make sure that we don't put ourselves in position where we could actually lose this series. It's kind of what happened against Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, where, oh my God, they're about to make this 3-0 comeback, and then they get smoked in Game 7 at home. So I almost feel like the Celtics would have rather the Nuggets had a better record this season, so that if and when they meet in the finals in June, Boston could steal a game in Denver, and then, or really they'd have to steal 2 games in Denver, win 2 games at home, 2 out of 3 at home, and win the championship. But yeah, that's a devastating blow for the Cavs, and obviously feel terrible for Donovan Mitchell. The guy's been having a great postseason run, and listen, who's Cleveland go to now? Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, who's been very limited offense. I mean, the Cavs with as well as Donovan Mitchell's played this season have been a limited offensive team. Now without Donovan Mitchell, it's a wrap. So Boston, the line here says Boston minus 12.5. I imagine that came in after the Donovan Mitchell news. But I would definitely take Boston to cover there. I would be. Which, listen, we've seen teams in the playoffs before, or it's more of a regular season thing because it's a long 82-game season. A random Wednesday night in Detroit, maybe something. Well, maybe not Detroit because they're terrible. By the way, Pistons fans, God bless y'all. God bless y'all. If you win 14 games, you break the record for the longest losing streak in the history of the NBA, and you get the 5th pick. That is brutal. Whereas Atlanta, who wasn't good, but they won 36 games. They were in the play-in tournament, had a 3% chance to get the number 1 pick. And what do you know? The 3% happens. They get the number 1 pick in the draft. I'll tell you, if I were Atlanta, just briefly before I transition to the NFL and to the Kansas City-Baltimore game, the opening night game, if I were actually we're talking about Jared Goff before we get to the Kansas City game. But if I were the Hawks, you got the 1st pick. You're in quicksand with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. You're not going anywhere. I'd trade DeJounte Murray, trade Trae Young. You get a haul for both and just go into a full-on rebuild. Kind of what the Jazz did in trading Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Now, I don't think you'll get a Rudy Gobert haul unless you trade with a dumb organization like the Jazz did, but that's what I would do. So, again, Atlanta's a great city. I wish they had a better basketball team so that it was more of a hot spot for NBA players, but right now it's just not. So about an hour and a half before the show started, we got some breaking news out of Detroit. Not just that the Pistons got the short end of the lottery stick and getting the 5th pick despite winning only 14 games, but the Detroit Lions, according to Adam Schefter and multiple other sources, have signed Jared Goff to a 4-year extension, $212 million, which includes $170 million guaranteed. Goff, according to Schefter, Goff now goes from being the number 1 overall pick to being the highest paid Lion in franchise history. So I have 3 takeaways. Number 1, Jared Goff's worth every penny. He is. I did my quarterback rankings list, my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL coming out of the season and obviously entering next season. There's no football between mid-February to very early September. So I can't, there's nothing you can add or detract from my rankings of where you're at. But Jared Goff had him as the 10th best quarterback in the NFL. Some may have him a touch higher. Most, I think, would have him lower. I just present to you this. Jared Goff is the typical, give him the right coach, give him weapons, go a long way. And by the way, people say, well, what about Brock Purdy? Well, Jared Goff's done it in 2 destinations. Jared Goff, by the way, we thought for years, he's just a product of Sean McVay, which early on that might have been somewhat true. But this is a guy, after all, who's, since he entered the league, top 5 in touchdown passes. Top 5. And one of the only guys above him is Brady. And, Tom is going to retire, already did retire. So he'll pass Tom in short order to go into the top 4. This is the same guy who was kind of left for dead in Detroit. In the Stafford trade, we're thinking, okay, Jared Goff's just going to be a middle of the road. Like we all knew he was a starting quarterback. He started a Super Bowl. Like He led a game-tying and game-winning drive on the road in New Orleans in the NFC title game in 2019 to get them to the Super Bowl. So Jared Goff has always been a productive quarterback. It's always been kind of divisive on where he ranks. But we're thinking, it's Detroit. If Stafford couldn't be successful there, and Stafford's more talented, what the heck? Well, they sucked year one, but Goff is okay. Year two, Goff plays very well at the end of the season, which is why the finish at the end of the season, the culture shift with Dan Campbell, and the incredible job done by Brad Holmes, the general manager of the Lions, to put the talent together through the draft, sign some really good quality free agents, is why, heading into last season, I said that the Lions would make the NFC Championship game. They did. They retained their offensive coordinator, not Brad Johnson. I'm forgetting the guy's name. Ben Johnson. Brad Johnson, Ben Johnson. They retained Ben Johnson. They retained their defensive coordinator, retained all of their major key pieces. I think they're in position to go to the Super Bowl. I really do. San Francisco may lose Ayuk or Debo, and they always have an injury problem, partly because of the way Shanahan likes to coach, likes to play. Then you have the situation. I think the Rams are the biggest threat to the Lions outside of the Niners, but the Rams did lose Aaron Donald. Matthew Stafford is getting up there in age. Cooper Kupp's dealt with some health problems, so we'll see if that's able to materialize over the course of a 17-game season and the playoffs. Philly's got a really good roster. Don't like their offensive coaching staff at all. Dallas, I don't like their offensive coaching staff. Their offensive weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb, I don't trust Dallas. Again, NFC South, okay, Atlanta will be fine. They're not threatening Detroit for the NFC crown. And so for Jared Goff, worth every penny. Second takeaway, this is brief. This is where my brain goes as a Vols fan. Hendon Hooker's going to have to get traded because Hendon Hooker was drafted in the third round in 2023. Hendon Hooker in 2022 was en route to winning the Heisman, got hurt, still should have been a Heisman finals. How Stetson Bennett got in over him, still not sure about that. But Hendon Hooker's got a good arm. Hendon Hooker's mobile. Hendon Hooker's a great leader, sees the field well. Again, doesn't turn the ball over, good decision maker. I would like to see Hendon ball out in training camp, ball out in the preseason, and we see sort of like I don't know if it'll be a Trey Lance type situation where you get as high as a 4th round pick for him, but could you get maybe a 6th round pick for Hendon Hooker? Hendon Hooker's better than the 6th round talent, so I would make that move if I were a team like maybe the Minnesota Vikings probably wouldn't be the move for him because they already got J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold. But a team like, say, I don't know, throw a team out there. Miami. They haven't extended Tua. Hendon Hooker, you're not paying him anything. You got him the weapons there. So keep in mind, just watch that story over the course of the offseason. Particularly, I expect it to ramp up during training camp, during the preseason, where Hendon Hooker becomes number 2 guy to Jared Goff, gets dealt right before the regular season, a la Josh Dobbs, another Tennessee guy, go Vols, a la Trey Lance to the Cowboys. I can see that situation coming to pass. Again, Miami, keep your eyes out for that being a possibility, trading him to the other conference. The third takeaway is it's another win for Dak Prescott. Dak is just sitting back. The Cowboys aren't going to pay him, despite him having the best year of his career. And he's saying, okay, Goff's getting paid. Herbert got paid last year. Trevor Lawrence going to get paid this year. Jalen Hurts got paid last year. Burrow got paid last year. I'm better than some of these guys. Some of these guys are better than me, but I'm in the discussion to be able to get to be in the higher end of the pay grade as it pertains to where the market's going. And it's continued mismanagement by the Dallas Cowboys, not just with Dak, but they've done this with CeeDee Lamb too. Amon-Ra St. Brown, another Lions guy, gets paid. A.J. Brown gets paid. Devontae Smith gets paid. Justin Jefferson is going to get paid likely before CeeDee Lamb, who's holding out right now. It's just another prime example of poor business, poor ownership, just bad, poorly run operation, which the Dallas Cowboys have put together for 3 decades. So, listen, I think there's 2 winners, actually 3 winners here. Jared Goff, because he got paid and he's the franchise quarterback for, to me, the NFC favorite. Hendon Hooker is going to get an opportunity elsewhere because there's no point in keeping Hendon Hooker as a backup. You use a 3rd round pick on him. And by the way, he would have been picked higher if not for an ACL tear. So he'll get an opportunity elsewhere. It's not going to be in Detroit. Goff's their guy. And the last one, Dak is just sitting back like, okay, all right. Goff got paid. Herbert got paid. Hurts. Lawrence going to get paid. Burrow got paid. I'm sitting pretty right now. Dallas, you do what you did in 2019 and 2020. Just wait, let the other guys get paid, and then have to, in theory, overpay when you could have just paid me at the start, when you could pay me now. So I'm not a $59 million cap hit. You could spread the money out, but it's the Dallas Cowboys. What do you expect? But kudos to the Lions. Kudos to Jared Goff. I think that they're in great position to make the Super Bowl. I really do. John Rivera. Okay, John Rivera. I hate to be that guy, but why do colored quarterbacks always get the second guess when it comes to paying them? It's a reasonable question. Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson. Black quarterbacks have gotten the short end of the stick. Again, you do historically, at least it looks like, have to be Patrick Mahomes to be immediately get that deal done. But it's a reasonable question. I've when it comes to the evaluation of black quarterbacks, I've always been one of the those who've been critical of draft evaluators. When CJ Stroud didn't pass it wasn't the Wonderlic test, but it was some stupid test that CJ Stroud didn't pass. I guess he can't process information. I'm like, the heck you talk about? I watched him at Ohio State. Dude can process fine. He's fine. And also too, listen, they've done, again, not to go too deep into this, but they've done studies in the past where, when you hear, if you listen on the radio, and I don't know if it's as common today as it used to be, but it wasn't that long ago, where if you listen to a game on the radio and say you had never heard of Lamar Jackson, you never heard of the guy, and you just listen to the radio and you hear the description of Lamar Jackson, man, fast, athletic, twitchy. But if you hear a game about, Joe Burrow, same division. Oh, Burrow processes quick. Joe Burrow sees the field well. They give the intellectual edge to the white guy, but the athletic edge to the black guy. And it's those guys there's plenty of athletic white guys and plenty, CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, plenty of guys who can on the fly process information. Like it's the thing with CJ Stroud a year ago. Well, I don't know. CJ Stroud may fall in the draft because of this test. Okay. It's kind of dumb, but if you want the Texans evidently didn't take that into consideration and they're better off for it. Listen, Kenny, I want to see your film. I want to make sure you're there's no off the field stuff. That's why I thought the Caleb Williams criticism was nonsense. There was no police video like with Baker Mayfield. There was no partying situations like with Johnny Manziel. He painted his fingernails and he cried with his mom. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. You know who I'd be worried about? Shador Sanders. Arguing with people on Twitter. Like that. Caleb Williams doesn't do that. Mahomes doesn't do that. Lamar doesn't do it. Well, Lamar has, but not much. The elite guys don't do that. So Shador, that's a concern of mine. But as with the other guys, most of the franchise guys, they don't really dabble into that. But you're not wrong, John. You are not wrong at all when it comes to evaluating black quarterbacks. When it comes to paying black, Lamar Jackson's now won 2 MVPs. He had 1 MVP prior to a year ago. And it was like, oh, should they pay him? And by the way, it wasn't just the Ravens. It was Atlanta Falcons said, yeah, we'll pass Lamar Jackson for Desmond Ridder. Saints, not we're passing him for Derek Carr. Steelers, not we'll pass for Kenny Pickett. Come on, man. There is a double standard, John, even in 2024. But you're right on that. Nonetheless, though, Jared Goff, worth every penny. And Hendon Hooker, you're going to get a chance elsewhere, my man. You're going to ball out. Can't wait to see it. And for Dak Prescott, hey, my guy, just don't take a dang penny from the Dallas Cowboys. Just let it play out, which I don't think the Cowboys are going to offer it. I think they're on the same page, but just let it play out. And Dak ends up the highest paid QB for a well-run franchise, Pittsburgh. Anyways, speaking of the AFC North, just mention my Steelers briefly for a second. Speaking of the AFC North, a part of me's happy as a Steelers fan that this happened, but just a tiny, tiny, tiny part of me feels a little bad for the Baltimore Ravens. Just a tiny part of me. Because earlier this morning, actually, it was announced that the Ravens would go to Arrowhead Stadium opening night of the 2024 NFL season when the Chiefs would raise their second straight Super Bowl banner at Arrowhead, and the Ravens would go there for opening night. You say, Bryson, why do you feel sorry for them? Just because they're going to lose? It's 1 of 17. Like, who cares? One loss is one loss. The Ravens were the 1 seed last year. Were the 1 seed last year. Here's the thing. I looked back at this, and it's actually kind of scary. Playoff rematches on opening night don't tend to go well for the losing team, especially if the losing team Is it the defending champion? Well, the Ravens will undoubtedly be the underdogs in Kansas City. A Chiefs win is far from guaranteed. Obviously, it's the NFL. But if the Chiefs win, I'm not even kidding when I say this, I think it could derail the Ravens season. Part of that's history. I'm a believer. History often repeats itself. We can go and show you right here. So the last four times we've had a playoff rematch on opening night of the NFL season. Defending champs versus a team they beat in the playoffs, and the team they beat in the playoffs loses again on opening night. We can show you right here the last four examples. 2020, the Chiefs beat the Texans on opening night. 2018, the Eagles beat the Falcons on opening night. 2016, in what was a Super Bowl rematch, the Broncos beat the Panthers on opening night. And in 2010, the defending champion Saints beat the Vikings on opening night. You say, Bryson, why does that matter to me? I'll tell you exactly why it matters. How did those teams, Texans in 20, Falcons in 18, Panthers in 16, Vikings in 10, how did they fare the next season? The Texans missed the playoffs. The Falcons missed the playoffs. The Panthers missed the playoffs. And the Vikings missed the playoffs. Now, of course, injuries come into the fray. That does matter. But I think there's it takes a psychological, you could take a psychological blow as a football team and even individually certain players. If you think about, okay, we lost to this team. That team, the team we lost to, we've been thinking about them constantly all season long because it was them who stopped us from going on a long run. We thought we could have won the Super Bowl. Remember Brett Favre threw the interception in the Superdome? The Vikings were a field goal away from going to the Super Bowl. He throws the pick. Saints win in overtime. The Texans, right? The Texans had a 24-0 lead on the Chiefs and end up getting blown out. It was crazy. The Falcons lost to the Eagles against Nick Foles. Well, then they play Nick Foles in week 1, and Nick Foles beats him again. And in 2016, the Broncos, who had lost Peyton Manning to retirement, Panthers bring everybody back, MVP Cam, and they lose to Trevor Siemian making his first NFL start. And the Broncos, we've been thinking about this team constantly, nonstop, all season long, and we lose to them again. And they raised the banner that we felt like we should have raised. That can take a psychological blow to a franchise. I think it could happen if you're the Ravens. Because the fact of the matter is the Ravens do play, in my mind, the toughest division of football. I mean, the Bengals missed Joe Burrow for the second half of the season. Still ended up being on the doorstep of the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Steelers were in quarterback hell all season long. Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett. Need I remind you as a Steelers fan? Won 10 games, made the playoffs. Okay, the Cleveland Browns, similar situation. Quarterback hell. Joe Flacco had to be the savior at the end of the Browns season. Yeah, they made the playoffs, won 11 games. Division's brutal. You anticipate Cleveland will be better next year, in theory, but it is Cleveland. It's Cleveland. The Steelers, I don't think Russ is going to be exactly winning Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. He's better than what they had last year. The Steelers will be better at that position. And the Bengals get this guy Joe Burrow back. Assuming he's healthy, they'll be a threat. So you play an already brutal division. You play the defending champs opening night, and the history is the last 4 times we've had a defending champion beat the team they beat in the playoffs the year prior. That team, the losing team, often goes on to miss the playoffs in the last 4 instances that we've tracked going back to 2010. Even worse for the Baltimore Ravens. I think Patrick Mahomes' only legitimate rival quarterback-wise in the NFL is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's 3-1 against Mahomes. Joe Burrow's the only active quarterback playing that can say, I beat Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game. Nobody else can say that. Brady can say it, but he's retired now. Only active guy to say, I beat Mahomes in the playoffs. Josh Allen can't say that. He's 0-3 against Mahomes in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson's 0-1 in the playoffs against Mahomes, and even worse if you combine his regular season stats. We can show you the comparison when Mahomes and Lamar play each other, which we have 5 games of evidence, 5 games of data going back to 2018, which was the first year that Mahomes and Lamar were starters in the NFL. What happens when they play? Mahomes is way better. Lamar's 8 touchdowns, Mahomes has 14. Lamar's turned the ball over 6 times, Mahomes has turned the ball over twice. Lamar completes about 55% of his passes. Patrick completes about 72% of his passes. Lamar, this is including rushing, by the way, has about 275 yards per game. Mahomes has 354 yards per game. This is striking right here. Lamar has a passer rating against Mahomes, head-to-head, of 78. Mahomes has a passer rating against Lamar, and those great Ravens defenses of 115. Mahomes has won 4 games. Lamar has won once. And by the way, I say this as the Lamar guy. I'm one of the few Pittsburgh fans I've loved Lamar Jackson since his first MVP year. I think the guy's spectacular. I think all of the narratives and the notions around Lamar, oh, he can't throw, he can't do this, he can't do that. He continues to debunk that every single year. The one thing that Lamar Jackson has not done that folks doubt he can do is go to and win a Super Bowl. That's it. He's won 2 MVPs. Only other guy I can say that playing right now is Mahomes and Rodgers, but Rodgers is almost done. He's done everything else. He's won playoff games. He's won MVPs. He's shown he can throw a football to high level, led league in touchdown passes. He's proven all those things incorrect. He's just not on that guy's level. It's the thing I pushed back for all of last year, certainly in the lead up to the playoff game and in the aftermath of the playoff game when the Chiefs beat the Bills. Oh, Mahomes, Allen, it's a rivalry. No, it's not. It is not. Allen has gotten outplayed. Even in the game, the 13 seconds game, Allen has gotten outplayed by Mahomes every single time that they played in the playoffs and lost every single time that they played in the playoffs. So I think the Ravens have they're not going to get the game rescheduled or anything. I think they have a legitimate gripe to the NFL. Like, okay, you got to be kidding me. We lost this team in part because we had a terrible game plan, in part because the Chiefs had an awesome defense and Mahomes played mistake-free football. We've been thinking about them constantly, and if we lose to them on banner nights, it's just, again, now Lamar Jackson falls to 1-5 against Patrick. It's a domino effect that could result in the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to say missing the playoffs, but certainly not winning the division. With, I'd argue, the best roster. Pittsburgh's close, but the best roster in the division. So schedule leaks are coming over, and they're going to continue to come up until this full schedule is released on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. But I think the Ravens. I'm happy about it as a Steelers fan. I think the Ravens kind of got screwed over a little bit by the schedule makers, just a little bit. Patrick Brown. And I did see this a few minutes before the show started. Dallas will open at Cleveland, which is Tom Brady's broadcasting debut. Well, you knew Fox was going to do this, or that the NFL was going to do this. Like, come on. Tom's now the new lead analyst at Fox. Let's see. We're already going to have a big ratings draw because it's Tom Brady's first game as a broadcaster. Let's put the Cowboys on. We're going to get a massive rating. So I'm not going to lie, though. I hate that they put the Dak has to open a season in Cleveland. Ugh. But actually, you know what? Let's look at the positive side of it. I'm rooting for Russell Wilson. I hope Russell Wilson does well. I think the Steelers, if we're healthy, are going to make the playoffs. But if Russell is pretty good, which I think he'll be pretty good, 21, 2 touchdown passes, something like that, he'll be good. And that guy number 4 is on the market, free agent. Your Steelers are kind of in that Tampa Bay Bucks situation in 2019 where, man, they're good. Man, that roster, they just need a quarterback. Dak Prescott's in the market. I'm sure Dak Prescott would love to play for Mike Tomlin. Why I say that? Because this could be a precursor. The Steelers have owned the Browns for years. Would it not be a nice little preview of what's to come? Dak goes into Cleveland. Oh, America's eyes are watching. The last time we saw Dak, he crumbled against the Green Bay Packers. And Dak goes into Cleveland against this vaunted defense with the greatest quarterback ever looking on and balls out with limited weapons. It'd be cool. And a precursor, potentially. Come on, Dak, you want to come to Pittsburgh, man. Yeah, it's a great organization. They have a bunch of Super Bowls. The roster's there. Defense is loaded. They draft as well as anybody in the league. Omar Khan's doing his thing. He's cooking as a GM. Mike Tomlin is a Hall of Fame. Just need a quarterback. Just need a franchise Super Bowl caliber quarterback. And my guess is the guy that was second passer rating, second in touchdown interception ratio, first in touchdown passes, and third in terms of, I think I saw a stat the other day, like inaccurate passes, which third is actually a good thing. It's basically reverse. Third in terms of lack of inaccurate passes thrown last season. Sure use him in Pittsburgh. Dallas, hey, you knock yourselves out. You don't pay one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Pittsburgh, Russell's nice, but he's not Dak. But that'll be interesting, though. So, but, NFL knows what they're doing. They are the ratings cash cow. I believe 93 of the top 100 television broadcasts in 2023 were NFL games. I'll tell you, that boycott, it is working wonders. Instead of 95, it was like 93. Anywho's it. But that'll be fun. I will say, then I'll transition to the Mavericks, another Dallas team. I thought Tom Brady, because there was a video, Fox put a video of Fox's NFL account, put a video on Twitter where I don't know what this was from. It was Tom Brady and Michael Strahan standing there, and Michael Strahan was like, hey, you want to hear what your first game is? And Tom was like, yeah, what is it? And then they show Dallas and Cleveland. And Tom Brady, and listen, I don't hate Tom for it. He's the greatest quarterback ever. He's the most successful playoff quarterback ever. He can say whatever the heck he wants. We saw that during the roast. But Tom said, was talking about all the storylines, Mike McCarthy, can Dak Prescott finally come through? And there was like an audible laughter in the audience. And Tom said, oh, did that slip? Listen, if there's anybody, I've criticized the critics of Dak in the past. Because most, not all, but most of the criticism I found completely unfair and a double standard we apply to Dak that we don't apply to other guys. That said, if there's anybody that can criticize Dak for lack of playoff success, it is Tom Brady. So do I think some of the lack of playoff success because Dallas is a poorly run franchise? Yes, but I'm not going to push back on Tom on that. Not going to push back on Tom Brady. Okay? If there's anybody that knows what to do when it comes to winning the playoffs, it is that guy. Okay? I will not disrespect the GOAT. Not now, not ever. But I did think that was kind of funny. Keep in mind, though, Dak is kind of the reason you retired, okay? Last game he ever played, he lost to Dak. Nonetheless, we'll shift to the Dallas Mavericks, back to the NBA playoffs. So, Dallas won Game 3. They beat Oklahoma City on Saturday with the great Hubie Brown on the call for ESPN. Hubie Brown and Kyrie had a really cool moment before the game, which I thought was dope. But Dallas won a close game, 105-101. And it goes back to, and it was really interesting to see the comparison in terms of how they played, how they operated their offense, the Mavericks and the Thunder. And watching the Thunder, when things started not work right for them, go full on we're going to live and die by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which for the record, he's a great player, MVP candidate, superstar guy. That's what a lot of teams do when they can't generate enough offense. They go to their star player. But it was interesting watching that and then watching Dallas and say, oh, Dallas was that as recently as a year ago. Dallas was the live by Luka, die by Luka. Luka ISO, to quote Charles Barkley when he used to talk about James Harden, dribble, 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 dribble. But if you've noticed, it's the very reason I didn't buy into Dallas the first half, coming into the season, the first half of the season, didn't buy the Mavs at all. I thought they could maybe be a playoff team, but not much more than that. But toward the end of the regular season, I said, I think Dallas is the third best team in basketball. I think they'd be anybody. I would pick them over everybody in a 7-game series with the possible exception of Denver and Boston. Today, I pick them over Boston. But the way that they've operated, the way that they've changed their style of offense in the second half of the season, or really post-All-Star break, is a credit to Jason Kidd, a credit to Kyrie, and a credit to Luka. Because when Luka is not this ball-dominant guy, not getting other dudes involved, just Luka ISO constantly, they're successful. And that style of play that they used to run, look at every single great player that has tried that. Historically, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, it's never amounted to titles. I mean, Jordan got to some Eastern Conference finals, sure. Kobe Bryant put up some crazy scoring streaks, but they never really sniffed a title. Jordan couldn't get through the Pistons. Kobe couldn't get through the Suns or really anybody the Lakers played in the first round in the mid-2000s. But once Kobe got Pau Gasol, and once he got Phil Jackson back, once Michael got Phil Jackson to begin with Scottie Pippen, with the guys that the Bulls have been able to put together under Jerry Krause, play more of a team-oriented, triangle offense, team-oriented style of basketball, their numbers came down slightly, but they won a bunch of titles. That's why I think you could see, potentially, I'm not saying the Mavericks are going to win the championship this year. I think they got a shot. I'm not saying they're going to, but they got a better chance now than they used to. When Luka, I did the stat on Friday's show, and because this scenario happened again on Saturday, I can use the stat again, and it continues to add to my argument. When Luka Doncic's When Luka Doncic's ball usage rate is 30% or below, so when he's not essentially having the ball constantly in his hands the whole game, when it's 30% or below, can we take a look at those numbers? Luka's numbers individually are so great. 25, essentially 25, 10, and 8 on 45 from the field, 36 from 3. That is not bad for a volume shooter, which Luka is. But look on the left side of the screen there under Luka. When his ball usage rate is 30% or below, the Mavericks average 118 points per game. They only give up about 107 points per game, and they haven't lost. 9-0, have not lost.
I'm undefeated, never lost.
The Dallas Mavericks do. When they don't live and die by Luka Doncic, they can beat anybody, including the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were the 1 seed in the West, who have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who finished second for MVP. I personally would have voted Luka second, but I understand the argument for Shai. It gets, by the way, some of this too, I think, in fairness, to the overall narrative around Luka, I think some of it is he's beat up. Luka, you saw him constantly in the fourth quarter grabbing his knee. That's a concern for Dallas, but again, props to Luka. Props to Kyrie. Kyrie is playing his arse off on the defensive end of the floor. So's Luka. So are the Mavericks. It's why I bought into them. You get Tim Hardaway going. You get PJ Washington going. I think I saw a stat. PJ Washington I think he's leading the NBA in like 3-point percentage from the corner, something like that, some sort of stat like that. Like playing more of a team-oriented. Mavs got the guys. Missing Maxi Kleber hurts, but they've still got perimeter shooters. They've still got good defenders. But when you're going Luka, it's easy to defend. Okay, we're going to put our best defender on Luka. If he makes a shot, well, we'll get him next time. If he misses it, mission accomplished. But why is it easy to defend, you ask? It's not easy to defend for the individual guy on Luka, but for the other 4 guys guarding the other 4 Mavericks who are just kind of standing there waiting for Luka to do his magic, it's easy. Kind of get a break on the defensive end of the floor. And so for the Mavericks, this has been it's a credit to Jason Kidd, credit to Luka Doncic. Kyrie's been able to step up as well as a result of it. PJ Washington was great in game 2. Tim Hardaway Jr. was great in game 3. Like that's what you see. You play more when you have a superstar, which Luka obviously is. He's one of the 5 best players in the NBA. When you have a superstar who's willing to sacrifice some of the shots, some of the touches, if you have the requisite pieces, you can be as dangerous as Dallas is. Now, I picked Dallas in 7 coming into this series. I would not be shocked in the slightest. If Oklahoma City wins tonight, they obviously don't want to go down 3-1. If it's 3-1, I still think, regardless of whoever wins this game, assuming everybody's healthy, I think the Thunder will win game 5 in Oklahoma City. But this feels like either Dallas wins in 6, they win tonight, win game 6 in Dallas, take care of their home games, or they win in 7, where the Thunder win tonight. I would then pick the Thunder to win game 5, and then Dallas winning the last 2 games, 6 and 7, kind of similar to what they did against the Suns 2 years ago in the semifinals in the Western Conference. But you play more of a team-oriented style basketball, that's what you're going to get when you have a superstar. And Jason Kidd is... Listen, I was very skeptical of the Jason Kidd hiring in 2021, I guess it was. I was like, didn't really work in Brooklyn, didn't really work in Milwaukee. The Bucks got better without him. I don't know if I love this hire, but listen, when you get experience, when you fail at certain points in your life, you learn from those mistakes. Listen, Jason Kidd was a point guard. If there's anybody who knows how to quickly process and suss out a situation, it's Jason Kidd. And he recognizes mistakes, the areas where he fell short in. Comes to Dallas, made the conference finals 2 years ago, missed the playoffs last year, somewhat with the Kyrie trade. It was a weird fit, but they've gotten the fit to work this year. And the Mavs are 2 wins away from going to the Western Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years. And I'll tell you, I think they give Denver a better fight than Minnesota would, honestly. I really do. That would be a fun series. But listen, tonight, and I'll get my last segment with Caitlin Clark. Tonight we got Celtics Cavs. The line has actually come down from about 20 minutes ago when Patrick commented that Donovan Mitchell was out tonight. It was Boston minus 12.5. Now it's down to Boston minus 11.5. So I guess people like the Cleveland, which, again, we've seen it before where a team's missing their star and they know the other guys have to step up. The others, as Shaq calls them, and just absolutely leave everything out there, win the loose ball plays. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I would be, especially with this, how much better the Celtics are on the road than at home. I have an almost impossible time seeing the Cavs winning this game. I picked Celtics at 5 going in, said the Celtics wouldn't have more than 2 losses on their resume going into Eastern Conference Finals, considering how great they are, but especially how weak the East is. I think they'll take care of business tonight. And then, just talked about Thunder Mavericks. They play tonight, game 4, massive game in this series at 9:30 Eastern. Dallas, okay, so Vegas is kind of leaning OKC here because Dallas at home is only a minus 1.5 point favorite. I don't know. I wouldn't touch that game. Game 4s are weird when you have a team that's down 2-1 on the road. I mean, we saw it with Denver last night. We've seen it with plenty of teams in the past where the momentum seems to be shifting toward the home team. They can take the commanding 3-1 lead. Try to win game 5, but more so save your energy for game 6, close the series out at home. And if you have to play game 7, you play game 7. But I would almost lean towards picking the Thunder to win tonight. Matter of fact, I think I will. Thunder win tonight, but Mavs win in 7. That's what I got. Last topic. WNBA season starts tomorrow. I've followed the WNBA. I've done segments of the WNBA on my show plenty of times before this year, but I've never gone in like, hey, WNBA starts tomorrow. Like, what are the big storylines? Well, of course, there's one big storyline. The Aces could three-peat. That's notable, the Vegas Aces. But the biggest story, of course, is Caitlin Clark. So she's going to make her WNBA debut tomorrow against the Connecticut Sun. Sun are favorite minus 6.5, by the way. Listen, the Fever did get the number 1 pick for a reason. So the Fever aren't exactly winning a championship in 2024 is what I'm trying to get at. But expectations for the debut. Listen, I think Caitlin will play well. I think she'll distribute to her teammates well. Again, I don't think the Fever will have a terribly successful year. I think it'll be not Wemby and San Antonio because the Spurs were god-awful before they got Wemby. You say, well, they didn't win that many games this year. Well, Wemby still was able to guide them to some wins that they wouldn't have gotten without him. I think Caitlin will do the same for the Fever. But I was looking at this. I'm like, okay, what should for the duration of her entire rookie season, from May to, I think the regular season ends around like August, late August, early September. What should reasonable expectations of Caitlin Clark be in her rookie season? Well, what I did was I looked back at the 5 greatest, in my view, the 5 greatest rookie seasons in WNBA history. And I looked down the list, okay? So you got Breanna Stewart, you got Alina Deladon, you got Asia Wilson, you got Tamika Catchings go Vols, and Candace Parker go Vols. What do all of those players have in common? With the possible exception of Alina Deladon. All front court players. All front court players. The 5 greatest rookies in WNBA history, forwards and centers. So if Caitlin Clark, if at the end of the season, we say that was one of the 5 greatest rookie seasons in WNBA history, then it's unprecedented. Tamika Catchings was the forward. Candace Parker, forward/center. Asia Wilson, center. Alina Deladon can run the point, but she's more of a forward. She's more of kind of like a hybrid forward type of player. And Breanna Stewart's obviously a center as well, MVP player. Now, again, Diana Taurasi, who we know during the NCAA tournament, when UConn played Iowa in the Final Four, she was like, hey, listen, it's one thing to play against college kids. It's another play against grown women in the WNBA who do this for a living. Yes, that's true. I get that. And Taurasi is maybe the greatest player ever. She's the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history, one of the purest scores, one of the few players that, honest to God, I think could have played in the NBA. Honestly, if nothing else, is a spot-up shooter. Like, I think Maya Moore could have played in the NBA. Maya Moore is the greatest female player I've ever seen in my life. Ever. With respect to Caitlin Clark, Maya Moore was awesome. And left the WNBA early to pursue an even better career away from basketball. Ended up getting married because of it. So shout out to Maya Moore, who's a great person and was an awesome player as well. But I'll set Caitlin Clark's season totals to this. Because if you're wanting the best rookie season in WNBA history, Candace Parker, go Vols, who just retired recently. Okay, Candace Parker, this is her average as her rookie year. 18.5 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game, 3.4 assists, 2.3 blocks, 1.2 steals, and shot 52% from the field. Now, 52% is not all that shocking because she's a forward/center, but that was her rookie stats. Those are fantastic for a rookie. And, of course, Candace went on to win 3 championships, MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year. It's no surprise she had as great of a career as she did. One of the greatest players of all time. I'm going to say Caitlin Clark averages 17 a game because, again, Candace averaged 18.5. Candace was also in the paint a lot and had, obviously the physical advantage. Caitlin won't have that. Caitlin will be one of the smaller players, in the WNBA. I'll say Caitlin averages 17.4 points per game. She dishes out 8.5 assists, 4 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 2.8 rebounds per game. Again, WNBA players, whole different ballgame. She's not getting nearly as many rebounds as she did in college. She shoots 44.1% from the field and 38.6% from three. Those are just rough averages. I think that's what it'll come out to. She's not going to come in average 30 off the bat. But can she as time goes on? Yes. And again, if Caitlin puts out that stat line, it'll be one of the greatest rookie seasons in WNBA history. Again, Candace Parker, 18.5. Tamika Catchings averaged 18.6. A'ja Wilson averaged 20 her rookie season. You've seen what she's gone on to be, which is arguably the best player in the WNBA. But I'll say, you know what? I'm going to bump up Caitlin's scoring total from 17. Caitlin averages 19.1 points per game. She averages 19, about 44% from the field, 38 from three, which is kind of typical for a perimeter player. But I don't think she will struggle as much as Taurasi's letting on. And I love Taurasi. She's one of the best. I mean, didn't Kobe call her the White Mamba or something like that? Like that. She had respect for one of the greatest who ever did it, and she's the ultimate killer. And again, some of what she said, I'm still reserving the right to say some of what she said. The criticism of Caitlin Clark, or if it maybe not even criticism, but the evaluation of Caitlin Clark coming into the WNBA might have been she was a little salty, which I get. Trust me, I've been there, done that as a fan. She's a fan now of UConn. Might have been the fact that this girl knocked UConn out of the tournament, and I'm kind of pissed about it. I get that because Sue Bird wasn't as critical. Sue Bird offered critique. Taurasi kind of went more harsh, more strong on Caitlin Clark. So when did the Mercury, who Taurasi's played for her whole career, when did they play the Fever? I'm curious to see that. What do we got? So let's see. The Fever play the Mercury. When is that game? Okay, it's not in the month of May. Is it in June? Mercury, where are they at? Okay, June 3rd. And that game's going to be nationally televised, by the way. By the way, almost all of Caitlin's games will be nationally televised. ESPN, NBA TV, Prime Video. I mean, people want to see this woman play, and it's quite obvious she's a baller. Fever Mercury, the first time they play, June 30th, 3 p.m. That's a Sunday, so it's on the weekend on ESPN. That will be, listen, one thing that I hope to, and this last thing I'll say before I get out of here, between the NBA Finals, the end of the NBA Finals, and the start of the NFL season is kind of a dead period. Now, this year to be an exception because we got the Olympics. The Olympics are this year. It's regularly scheduled. It'll be July, August. We'll be talking a lot about Team USA, basketball, LeBron, Steph, KD, going on this one last run to go for gold. Steph playing in his first ever Olympics. Jason Tatum and Embiid, loaded roster. But I would love nothing more, certainly for the WNBA as a whole, but for Caitlin Clark to be a regular talking point on the show, because the WNBA season runs throughout the summer and very, very early into the fall. The finals are about week 5 of the NFL season. It's about when the finals are. I would love nothing more if Caitlin Clark is a regular talking point in this show, because I think she will be. I think she'll have some 30-point outputs. I think she'll have some dominant shooting games. And I think she's going to have one of the best rookie seasons in WNBA history. I really believe that. Not the best. I think Candace Parker are the best. But Fever Mercury, Taurasi versus Caitlin, that will be an interesting matchup. That's because listen, Caitlin she's wired like Taurasi, which is why Kobe loved Diana. Where the tiniest slight will kind of she's not the type that'll just outright say, hey, that pissed me off what you said, but she'll let her game do the talking and then play it coy, like, oh, I wasn't thinking about that. No. Okay. We'll see what she does. I think she'll be great. Patrick Brown, A'ja Wilson announced her signature Nike shoe as well. Very well deserved, no question. Knicks, Mitchell Robinson had ankle surgery, a second procedure. Brittany Griner out indefinitely with a toe fracture. That sucks. Yeah, there's a lot of injuries in the basketball world, no question. Knicks could really use Mitchell Robinson against Miles Turner, there's no doubt. But I'm still rolling with the Knicks. I'm gonna stick with Knicks in 6 because A, it rhymes. B, it's what I thought coming into the year, end of the series. So I'm not gonna move off a pick just because it's inconvenient. But Knicks in 7 feels more realistic. But I don't think, again, We overreact to these series, and we overreacted a ton to the Timberwolves Nuggets. Oh, the Nuggets are done. At the best player in the world, top 5 coach, better roster. We got to stop. And Rudy Gobert plays for the other team. Got to stop overreacting to champions facing the tiniest adversity. Or really anybody, but especially champions. But I'm still rolling with the Knicks. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Also, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We are this close, ladies and gentlemen, to 1,000 subscribers. I'd really, really appreciate if we could get there by the end of the second round of the playoffs. I believe we can do it this close. I think we're like at 988, something like that. So we're very close to 1,000. So if you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. And you're part of the Carving Up family. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody, except for your sleeping cat. Nealon's been in a good mood today. He's been in a good mood today, so I don't want to do anything to screw that up. Also, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your podcast, via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. You can find us on the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. 8 o'clock spot, either tomorrow or Wednesday. We will see our Grid Network game show. Check out all of our Grid Network content creators. Check out my man Patrick Brown, who you saw in the comments today, writing some great articles for the website. Definitely be sure to check that stuff out. But we will see you on Wednesday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America, no matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us on a daily basis. And no matter what anybody tries to say, tries to gaslight you on, oh, this isn't a problem, or, oh, there's only one way, there's only one solution to solve this problem. Both are BS. Both are flatly untrue. There's a number of issues. There's a massive issue and a number of ways that we can solve this problem. But we got to do our civic duty, got to vote, and got to make sure those who are in public office understand our frustration and get things done to address this problem. All right. See y'all on Wednesday. Got Carving Up the Context. We got Bryce's Best 10. Nuggets T-Wolves Game 5 will have been played the night before, so a ton of stuff to get into. NFL schedule release also on Wednesday, about 2 hours after the show starts, so very excited about that. We'll have more scheduling leaks, I imagine, before then, so we'll react to some of that. We will see you on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of glad the Ravens got the Chiefs. Go Chiefs in week 1. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.